Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie, we are on HIMI Horoscope and today's dragon is Sagittarius. Just in case you're new here, let me explain what HIMI Horoscope is. So it was around about this time last year and I thought, why not do something with these dragons I create, and I thought turning them into the zodiac star signs would be a really good place to start. And I started with Aquarius last year at the end of January, and pretty much every month with the exception from September onwards, because I had a load of work done on the house and just didn't have the time or the space to get it done. However, I'm nearly caught up and today's one is Sagittarius. I can't believe there's only one left after this. Of course, the HIMI's added in there as well because I am using the HIMI gouache and it's still the same one that I unboxed and used in 2019. My goodness. So yes, today's dragon is a Sagittarius and I will talk you through what is going on the screen right now. I thought a really dark background would be a good starting point, so I went in there with the deep blue that's in the set. I do try and use not very mixed colours. I kind of think there's a nice amount of colours in the HIMI set, and I do try and avoid mixing large batches of colours just purely because I have it never mix enough or it can make them go a little bit muddy, and I think again with that array of colours being there isn't really much need to. So I merged that deep blue and the purple that is in the set and created a gradient which kind of stops around where the bow is. Within the circle, yes, it's purple at the moment, but I do change my mind about that. There was just something about it that wasn't quite clicking with it. For the dragon itself, because I do believe Sagittarius is a fire sign, I wanted to have some warm colours in there. I used the gorgeous yellowy orange that's in there and the deepest scarlet red, and this is usually the only place where I'll mix a colour, and that's where I'm creating a gradient within the scales. Now, it took me a few scribbles to get the idea for this one. I thought about having a dragon as an archer and actually holding the bow with his claws and sort of casting the arrow off that way. I even thought about turning the dragon itself into an arrow, but then I thought having a pointy looking dragon wouldn't quite go with the aesthetic that I've had throughout this series. So eventually I settled on the dragon perching the bow between his many shoulders, because if you think about it, if he's got 4 arms and wings, he's technically got 2 sets of shoulders, right? Maybe that's one for in the comments. And also, to set off the whole aesthetic again, having the dragon wrapped around the arrow, it just looks a lot better. I don't know why. As soon as I'd sort of scribbled it out, I'm like, that's the one, that's the idea we're going for. Once I'd got the scale detailing in, I added some highlights to the scales and it was time to start working on that wing. Using the same colour that I'd used for the dragon's body, I just blocked the area out for now just so I knew what was going where. And with a similar approach, went in there with some shadows and highlights again, mixing that scarlet ever so slightly with that yellow to create a gradient and just to add other tonal effects. Now, I always try and keep the colour palette quite restricted when I do these. In total, I only pulled 5 colours from the palette and worked with those. So when it came to doing the bow and the arrow as well as the circular outline, I just added that white to them so they'd stand out but would still match the colour scheme. With these being quite simplified designs, there was not really any need to overwhelm it with every single colour that I've got. And as well, if you look back through all of the other ones I've done, there's a kind of consistency there as well. There's 1 or 2 of them that completely stand out, but again, it's pretty restricted colour palettes on there. I decided for the arrow to use that gorgeous purple and create a lilac by adding the white, and then for the tail of the arrow I used some of that deep blue in the background and pulled it in to add the detailing there. Now we're kind of at the stage where I was changing my mind about how this dragon was going to stand out, and I thought a white outline around it was a good start. It just really makes that dragon pop. However, when it came to following that on the purple side, on the other side of the bow, if that makes sense, I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't think white would work, so I carried on that deep blue, and it still just didn't quite pop out enough. I think what I'd got in my head wasn't quite matching up with what was happening on paper, and that does happen sometimes, and that's okay and that's normal. So whilst I was having a little think about that dilemma, I went and carried on with some more of those details on the wings. And yes, I did mix a little bit of that orange colour up because I didn't want it to be the same colour as the wing closest to us, otherwise that would have gotten complicated. I also strengthened some of the lines that interlaid with each other on the dragon, so where the coils of the dragon overlap, I thought by adding that deep red in there would add some extra definition. And I thought it would be a good opportunity as well to add a little bit more tonal detail in there. I carried that red on to the wings, the one in the foreground as well as the one in the background, because I thought that red would be deep enough for that, and that worked out fine. And I also carried on using that deep red for the actual, I suppose, for the actual finger joints of the wings. After completing that, I came to the conclusion that it was just best that I add that deep blue into that other part of the circle, and things started to improve greatly. I also made a slight adjustment to the dragon's head because it just wasn't quite lining up right. His head looked like it was pointing down a little bit too low, and there was a little bit too much neck behind him, so I do go around and bring that in a little bit. This is one of the things I do like about gouache, is it's opaque enough to rectify some of your mistakes, and as long as your paint isn't too runny, it's okay to do that. If you've got quite watery paint, it will reactivate underneath. And sometimes you've just got to let that completely dry out and try again with a thicker layer. I'm sure you'll have noticed as well, I did the splatter paint stars in the background, and I absolutely love doing that at the moment. I think it really suits these horoscope dragons. But if I'm doing a starry sky of any kind, if I can throw some white paint on there, or lighter colours of what's in the sky, oh, love it. Just really makes a nice galaxy effect. For the circle that frames the dragon, I used the same yellow and added a load of white in there just to create this glowing ring, and I think that looks really nice. And I went around and tidied that up with the surrounding colours. With the exception of what to do in the background on the other side of the bow, this is one of them dragons where it kind of just worked, and I kind of knew how to solve any problems that arrived. Sometimes I can be doing a painting for ages and think this isn't looking like anything, and then there'll be a turning point. But I think because I've done quite a few of them now, it's like I can kind of solve them problems in my head and not despair or not panic about it, and address anything that needs to be changed in my own time, and not think, oh, I've got to panic, it's going to ruin the whole thing, I'm going to have to start again. Now, a neat little trick for the string on the bow was to get some cardboard and pop some gouache on there and print it down. And I quite like how that turned out. It was a really nice finishing touch. Anyway, you wonderful people, thank you so much for watching, and I do hope you've enjoyed this one. The Dragons playlist is on screen now if you want to click it. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video.